And we are live. Good evening. Good evening. You are tuned into Dr. Sabrina Live here every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. And last week was an interesting show. And so, with everything that's going on with the politics and the election and how long it took us to get uh, president elect, as they say, and we still are waiting for the lawsuits and Trump doesn't really want to say that he's lost. He won't concede. He's fighting tooth and nail. So I really felt like this week we needed to just take a break from all things politics. And one of the things that I have been faced with, because I am single, ready to mingle, is that I get these questions all the time. The first question is, why is a successful, pretty, whatever woman, why are you still single? And I hate that question. And I hate that question because generally the people who are asking that question are single themselves. And so generally when you're single because you haven't selected a person to connect yourself with. And there's lots of things that go into connecting yourself with another person. And so this whole dating during times of COVID-19 is a big deal. I've gotten lots of questions about it. You can, as you're tuning in, put your questions in the comment box. But we're going to have a lively discussion tonight. And it's going to be lively because, and it really came out of a situation that I was faced with just last week. Last week, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he said to me that he is really concerned about me, that he really wants me to get married and have someone that's there for me and, to be connected, all that stuff. And trust and believe I want that too. However, he says, well, I wonder, are you open to dating a bisexual man? And I was puzzled by the question, but I answered the question, and my answer was no. And he really became disturbed with my answer. He said that he didn't understand how a woman who was learned, who was degreed, who was successful, who was clinical in their background and training and things of that nature, why I couldn't move past um, the bisexuality piece in dating. And so my thing is, I have a right to date who I want to date for whatever reason I want to date them. And I don't have to explain to other people why that's my answer. So I started thinking about it, talking to some friends, and I got a couple of guests. And my one guest is here already, so I'm going to bring her in so we could just get started. But before I bring her in, I just really want to let you all know the beast of a mind that we have in this guest tonight. Kyra Lee is the founder and CEO of Black Women Worldwide. Now, let me say this about this organization. This organization is designed to bring a light and help Black women economically all around the world. Yes, all around the world. They're a nonprofit organization, and they had their first launch as a nonprofit. Was it last week? Was it the 4th? Was the 4th? Was it the 4th? I think it was the 4th of November, and they had a wonderful award ceremony. And what was so nice about it is that there were women from all over the world who were a part of this event. And so I am just super, super excited to call her my little sister, but also she's going to be teaching us some stuff today. So I'm going to bring in Miss Kyra Lee.
Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
OMG. OMG.
So much to talk about.
So much to talk about. Okay, so you heard the situation with
I did. Yes.
Would I be open to dating a bisexual man? And so it led me to thinking that maybe I really don't understand what bisexuality is and what it isn't. And And maybe if I had a different understanding or a better understanding, maybe I would be open to. I don't know. So help us. What is bisexual? Bisexual. Okay, so before you tell me, I'm gonna tell you what I think. I
Please.
think it's a person who's attracted to both sexes,
Mhm.
and that they that one minute they want to get down with the woman if they're a woman, and then sometimes they want to get down with a man if they're a man. You know. But I did do some research, and so there is a bisexual activist by the name of Robin Och.
Mhm.
OC. And you know who that is?
I do.
Wow, I never heard of this person. So
Yes.
it's a she. Is Robin a she? Okay, because
I
you
believe
spelled
her
it.
pronoun is he. Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, because people's pronouns are different, so we'll get into
Pronouns are
that.
important. Yes.
Yeah, pronouns are important. I got a story about that too. But she said, I call myself bisexual because I acknowledge that I have in myself the potential to be attracted romantically and or sexually. Romantically and sexually are different, just saying, okay.
Mhm.
To people of more than one sex and or gender, not necessarily at the same time, not necessarily in the same way, and not necessarily to the same degree. That made my head hurt. That's a little deep for the people. For me, I'm just saying.
So
That's a
let's
lot.
take it. Let's take it from a straight lens. Let's unpack that a bit.
Okay.
When we talk about sexuality, we typically have a straightforward answer of what we like by the time we're 30 plus.
Okay.
Before 30 plus, it's a whole journey. But by 30 plus, most people have a general idea of what you like. And if you happen to find yourself attracted to both genders, most folks would identify as either queer, bisexual, or pansexual based on that understanding.
Okay.
So that's the beginning. There's a whole spectrum to sexuality. Anytime you try and label something, there's a range, there's levels to this thing. But in the beginning, bisexuality would assert that you are attracted to both genders sitting in your current understanding of yourself today.
Okay. Okay.
The second piece is case by case, because now we're talking about the way that we express attraction and express love and express ourselves. Some people are attracted to things that they would never act on. So there's sexuality and then there's sexual activity, which is where this conversation gets fun. There are whole groups of people that if you ask them, and I believe in respecting people's truths, they would participate in acts with both genders, but would not identify as bisexual because they would never be in a committed out relationship with a partner of the same sex.
Okay. So is that considered a person who was on the down low?
I think it depends. And the reason I say that is because it's very difficult and it's a bit toxic to assert a label on another human being. I prefer to take people's truth.
Okay.
But it's important to ask questions when we're talking about sexuality because there are levels to things. So for instance, if you happen to be a heterosexual woman and you're curious about whether a person is bisexual male, asking, are you attracted to men is one question, and asking, have you been with a man is another question. And you may get different answers depending on what you
Yes,
ask.
because
Mhm.
and that makes sense to me. I get that because you can be a
Mhm.
virgin and never have had
Mhm.
sex, but you can be attracted to,
Mhm.
that's what you like, that's what you want to touch on,
Yeah.
that's what gets you going. So yeah, okay, I get
Yes.
that. I get that. Okay, this is good. I like
There's
this
also a
unpacking and
distinction. Yes, lots of unpacking. I wanna give our three categories. There's also an existence, a reality, a truth that is a person that is actually homosexual, queer, or gay, right? That does not want to be out, which is something you alluded to earlier. So there is this overlap in the life that I want the world to see me as, and there's this life that I actually want for myself in my private moments. That's not the
So,
same thing.
okay, so now this is, and I'm thinking I'm getting it because I know that sometimes based on a person's employment, what they do in the world, that it may not be advantageous for them to come out as
Mm-hmm.
queer or gay or bi or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
However, they still don't engage in things that are hetero because that's not what they are. They don't go down that street. They don't act like it. They just don't identify in the world as, you know, gay or
Mm-hmm.
queer. Okay, I
And
can
people
get
need to understand that when you start talking about identity, specifically in the Black and BIPOC communities, there's a level of risk, danger, alienation, physical harm that you're taking on when you are proclaiming some of these labels, whether it be gay, bisexual, queer, trans, whatever have you. So what a person performs as, or the behaviors a person chooses to take on, is separate than sexuality, to keep this simple. Sexuality is an understanding within yourself. Sexuality is a truth that no one else can assign to you. And sexuality is something that you live daily. It's not something you try.
okay.
So for the purposes of this conversation, I think it's important to kind of dive on the male side of it, because this is where people get hung up, to me, in my experience. On the male side, there is a term called bi-erasure that applies a lot. Bi-erasure is the unwillingness to acknowledge that a person can be bisexual. It means that the person is forcing you to either be gay or straight. You're not allowing for this bisexuality to occur. The danger in that is, let's say we're talking about a man and you're out on a date and this man is trying to tell you his truth. And what he's telling you is, I'm attracted to men and women. If you force him into this box labeled gay, you're missing part of what he's saying, literally half. Strictly on the identity part.
So I can hear that that's what he identifies as and what he likes.
Mm-hmm.
That does not mean that I have to then still date him.
Oh no, then there's the other part of the conversation called you. We're just talking about them right now. We can pivot right back to, you are the sister that this man, you guys got to hear this story. It's actually, we're going to unpack that too. But we have got to get away from this idea of, because you are not in a marriage right now, there is somehow this leap to damn to singlehood forever. I don't know how, it's such a leap that we have to get away from putting our women through. And as women, we have to start rejecting, because it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to desire, like, well, I'll say this. As people, we're created to be interdependent and not independent. But how we do that, there's so many different variations of how you do that. And so if you're not married, if you're not coupled, and at that time, people think that there's something wrong with you, that you haven't been found or found somebody or all that kind of stuff. Because I get that all the time. Oh my God, Sabrina, why are you still single? One, because I refuse to, I say all this, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before. I don't want what I don't want.
Yes.
And because I don't want what I don't want, I won't settle for anything that I don't want. So that's why I'm single.
I think there's a lot of patriarchy in this conversation about what a woman should be, period. And I think there's a lot of toxicity in deciding, because I'm not performing, sexually or otherwise, in my life in the way that you want me to show up, I'm somehow damaged. It's a very toxic preface that we got to kind of call out. So,
okay. I'm going to go here.
Go for it.
Because I can. How do you identify yourself?
I identify as gay.
Now, people know I introduced you as my little sister, so I know that you have dated men.
Yes, I have.
And you've been married
I have.
before. Yeah,
I
you've been
have.
married before. So during that time, would you have considered yourself bisexual or heterosexual, or like what? Like, how we even get here? Because
How
like
did we get here is important. How did we get here is important. So my journey is, in my opinion, interesting, but not uncommon.
okay.
So I'm a Metro Detroit girl. And in that space, as every city has, there is an LGBTQ community. The Detroit community is very clear and a bit rigid on labels. You will find that Cali, Atlanta, they tend to allow for self-defining a bit more. Detroit is a very small network. We know that you can't go anywhere in the world without meeting someone from Detroit doing something that impacts you. So in my journey, I was an athlete that was never boy crazy. I was never super interested in sex, if we're being honest. That wasn't something I was readily thinking about. And I had different challenges coming up. So I was more so focused on getting out of Michigan, going to DC, going to Howard, and starting this life where I myself, as a young woman, could start defining some of my choices and some of my surroundings. That's what my focus was. If you go back and ask many of my partners, they would tell me that I was gay. I had a conversation.
Those were men.
Those were men. Yep.
Okay.
My male partners would tell me or ask me, if that was something that I considered. And at the time, I wasn't in the LGBTQ community in Detroit. I didn't have a liaison to kind of show me the ropes on what options were available. And I didn't have anyone in my immediate circle to talk to about how this goes and what this looks like. So what would happen is you would run into women that you found attractive, and they would ask you, have you dated men? And I would say yes. And so they would say, you're bi. And I would say, okay. And they would ask me, could I see myself, marrying a woman? Could I see myself being intimate with a woman? The answer was always yes. But for their standards, very similar to yours, they were not interested in a serious relationship with someone that had been with a male ever. If you had been with a male ever, that was something that my dating experience up until late 20s, folks were just not interested in. And I respected that. I never hid the fact that I dated men, and I never hid the fact that I was attracted to women from the men that I tried to entertain. But that was the experience. So in moving away from Detroit, I found out that there is this entire world that allows for you to have dated men, but not currently be attracted to them. And so in that, I found truth. In that, I found community. And it's a story that I tell openly, just as we're talking right now. But I don't feel responsible in using the word bisexual because I wouldn't date a man today. And I don't find men romantically attractive. You guys are wonderful, but I don't find men romantically attractive at this point.
So when you were dating men, were you romantically attracted to them, or do you feel that maybe you were forced into going down that street because of what society felt, or family, or whatever, church,
So here's the funny thing. So a couple of things. So I was raised in the church, like most of us. I was extremely religious as a young person. So I walked that complete walk, had no problem with the idea of following biblical scripture and trying all these things. Also, you have to keep in mind that I was not a person that was largely physical at this time. So I didn't have to run up against my hard stops much.
Okay.
Putting that into perspective, when you don't know what attraction is supposed to feel like, you don't realize that you're lacking something at first. But I do remember very much feeling like my girlfriends were very enthusiastic about these different guys they were dating, and they were very focused on these boyfriends. And I didn't have that piece. I didn't have the, oh girl, the physical blew my mind. I could never relate to any of that.
Internet. Hold that thought. Because my second guest is in the studio. And I got to give it up because I'm feeling some kind of nervousness right now because I feel like the team is back together again because I used to do a show on Wednesdays, and every Wednesday we called it Sizzling Shop Talk Night. And Rodney Howe, who is a celebrity hair and fashion stylist, he is the founder of Hair Shun. He is a made man. He is a socialite. He will not only get you tight outside, but he'll get your environment together. Oh my goodness, is he an interior designer extraordinaire? And he's just cool people. Can we say hey to Mr. Rodney Howe?
There we
Hey,
have it
Rodney Howe.
again. Dr. Sabrina, how are you?
Back together again.
Wonderful. You know what? Every time I get an introduction from you, it's like I'm looking. I'm like, okay, who is she talking about? Where's this person at? But I feel
I
so
am
honored
talking
to
about
be
I'm
in your
talking about
presence
you.
again.
I'm talking about you, my brother. I'm talking about you. Talking about you.
Oh, that is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. I have to apologize to you and the beautiful young lady. Technology is something else. As we get older, it's like it gets more advanced for some reason, and I'm on here fumbling, trying to get on the broadcast with you guys, and I don't know what's going on with my computer. I'm still going here. Just my emails haven't updated, so I'm like, dude, really? At 9 o'clock, I have to be on this broadcast. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. And thank you so much for allowing me to come on with both of you to talk about dating. That's so exciting. That's always an
Dating.
exciting topic.
And the question is, are people more open to a bisexual partner or not? Because
Mm.
I was asked, that was how we started the conversation. I was asked by a gentleman, would I be open to dating someone who was bisexual? And I said no. And he said that he was mad at me almost. He was like, I cannot believe that you're so close-minded, Dr. Sabrina. You're a doctor, you're clinical, you've had this sex show, all of this, and you're not open to a bisexual man?
That's something. You know what? It's always the other way around. If it were a guy, of course, the brother's going to be open for a bisexual relationship with his woman. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of hard for some brothers to be open if it were another man in the relationship, or if the wife wanted them to
Explore.
watch them or explore. So it's always kind of one sided, and I mean, nowadays you never know, Dr. Sabrina, what people are into. It's not the old school thing like it was when we were coming up. But and we used to always talk about on our show is that how women should act, and that's really cool that the brother did ask you if you were. A lot of people enter into relationships and they don't know, and then you end up finding out that your partner, be it male or female, is on the low because it's not acceptable, or their partner's not into that. Or but nowadays it's almost some of everything goes, and you may not be into it, but your partner probably is, and you just don't know about it. So it's so important to ask. Communication is key. So, Dr.
Communication
Sabrina,
very key. Yes.
right. So it's something that, and of course you said no. If you and the old school thing is that I know I asked a friend of mine not too long ago. She's married. I won't say her name, but I asked her if she would go to a strip club with her husband. So
Okay.
it's and she said, and very prominent young lady, professional, really, nice, beautiful looking. But for her partner, for her husband, he wanted her to go, so she did. So a lot of people do things or try things for the first time for their partners, for their husbands, for their wives, and it's probably something that would be out of the norm for them, something that they normally wouldn't do, but for the sake of the relationship or exploring the relationship or satisfying their partner, they would do it. So it's pretty interesting, and a lot of people would probably say no if they were put on Front Street.
Well, let me say this. I would go to a strip club with my mate. What I would
Hmm.
not want is for the stripper to give me a lap dance.
Okay.
I wouldn't want that, but I would be open to going and see it because they be. I watch P Valley. They be working that pole, baby. They
Isn't
be
that
working
something
that
good?
pole. They
That's
be
something
working
else,
that.
boy. That's something
Shout out to Miss
else.
Tony Bryce, yes, from
That's
P
an
Valley.
awesome show. Awesome show. But you know what I find in that show, and once again, it's kind of two sided. Guys are different. I was talking to my barber and I was asking him about P Valley, and he's like, "Oh, dude, P Valley, that is the show. It's the bomb." But I don't like the idea of the gay guy or the Uncle Phil guy, And I'm like,
Different.
so it's okay. Everything else is okay, but that part of it you don't like. And I'm like, so what about it that I don't want to see two gay guys or whatever, but you want to see two women, which is okay. You want to watch them, make out together. So it's an interesting subject and a topic. That's how come I'm so excited to join in. You always have some amazing topics, some controversial things.
I think that it's important for us to talk about it because uh, many women, and I've had clients that had this happen. I've had clients that have been in a relationship, married a man, and later
Mhm.
found out that he was in a relationship with another man, and it devastated her.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can't compete. A woman can't compete with that, and I think guys
Why?
should be
Why is
honest.
that? Why is that, Rodney?
Why can't women compete with it?
Yes.
Because a woman can't give a man what a man could give. That's something totally different. It's out of her her league. I mean, she would feel kind of insecure, I'm sure, and uncomfortable because it's some type of satisfaction that only a man gets from another man. He wouldn't be able to get it, from a woman. And I mean, depending on the individual, but I think totally that someone, if you're in a relationship, you should be honest with your partner, and especially if it's going
Absolutely.
to be your wife. You should be, or your husband
Or
for
your
that
husband.
matter.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You should be honest.
Is it important though that we not broad brush? And the reason I bring that up though is there's a lot of perspectives on each of these
Mhm.
topics. And it's very hard to say what men in general and what women in general would feel in these situations because it varies.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. And then once again, as I said, a lot of people aren't going to be open and honest with you. Once that door is closed, people will do some things and I'm sure we've all played a fool before. Everybody's played a fool sometime, or for the sake of their partner, or for the sake of love. So hey, it varies. So a lot of people aren't going to be open and talk about that honestly.
I'd submit this though. I would submit this, and I want to ask you both. Do you think that people honestly try things for their partner that they're not curious about?
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I
They
do.
they do. Look, I'm a hairdresser and
Mhm.
I talk to these women all the time and they share some stuff with me and I'll be like, wow.
Mhm.
But for the sake of their partner, I have a client and she and her husband, they don't have an open marriage, but they invite women in. They don't invite men, they invite women in. So that's
So let
kind
me
of
ask this
interesting.
question. Does she feel that she's attracted to women?
Yes.
Okay. So now that's to me,
To
that
me,
that would mean that she was curious at some point. if
Right,
she's
right.
attracted to him.
But
Now,
I think the
client,
curiosity, right?
I have
I think.
a client. I
Hmm.
do. I have a client who got with this guy, was totally enamored with him, and then he asked her to do things that she didn't want to do, but because she's so mesmerized by him,
Him, right?
she kept doing whatever he wanted her to do. Because when she shared with me what was going on, I asked her, which to me was a logical question: when did you find out that you were attracted to women? And she says, I'm not attracted to women. I
Right,
do that because he liked it. I
right.
do
Exactly,
it because I like it.
exactly.
So, like when you're saying, Kyra, that there is such a variation of reasons why people do what they do, it just is. But I think at the end of the day, whatever we do, we need to be honest with ourselves first. I think that's the thing, that people
That's
are
important.
honest with themselves. And so then you run into the situation, you get with somebody and you haven't been honest. And now you're like, I'm miserable because I'm not getting what I need.
Yeah, satisfaction out of the relationship. It's one sided, if
Right.
if you will. It's one
The
sided.
other thing we have to be careful about too when we're talking about bisexuality is we've got to be careful to not refer to the other or the third party as a means to an end also.
Right.
So to start thinking about this as a, oh, well, me and my male partner, if I happen to be straight,
Mhm.
are interested in exploring. So there's this other young lady involved that now becomes an object of discussion, in fact. And then the conversation later is, oh, well, this was just something to try, involving an entire human being. This was just something to try. And I actually don't find her attractive at all. I'm doing this for him.
Right.
There's
Right.
there's a certain amount of inhumanity to that perspective as well to me.
And this happened. I'm sure it's happened a lot. A lot of things that I had a friend of mine that I spoke with, and she's a psychiatrist, and
Mhm.
she said that a lot of women are in prison because of men, because
Mhm.
of something that they've done for their men,
Mhm.
and and I think a lot of women will be open to trying things to satisfy their men, and but vice versa. I don't think that a brother would be open to do the same. I haven't heard where a guy was invited into the relationship for him to be with the guy's woman, because most brothers aren't going to have that. They are not going to have
Careful about most because it happens, but that's a reflection of the circles that we're in. It happens.
right. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure it does, but
It happens.
I'm sure that it's not as likely as it would be if it were the other way around.
But let me pose this. What if we normalized? And I'm going to ask you this, Dr. Jackson. What if we were to say that anything goes? Do you think people will be more comfortable with dating folks that are bisexual?
I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know, because I think that at the end of the day, people have to be honest about
With themselves too.
with themselves about what they're attracted to. So
Right.
now for me, the reason that I don't want to date a man who is attracted to men
And,
is because I know just what Rodney says.
Mhm.
What a man can do for a man, I can't do for a man.
right.
The thing that he's attracted to for a man is not going to be what he's attracted to with me.
You
And he may be
exactly.
attracted to me as well. But, and if I'm honest with myself, I don't, that just may,
It's not for you.
and it's interesting because I had there was a well-known gospel artist who had wrote a book about um, the fact that he had been engaged in same-sex, you know, activities, and that he wanted to get married and leave that part of his life behind because he had been molested as a child and things of that nature. So the question came to me is, if he asked me out on a date, would I go? And I said no. And my person said to me, well, why not? Why wouldn't you go? I said, because I don't want a man who's been with a man. I don't. And she said to me that I was not forgiving. And I says, well, I don't have anything to forgive him for because he ain't did nothing to me.
But you know what? That's definitely your choice. Is it was a show that was on, and God, I kept trying to think of the name of it. My cousin was on it, and it was a dating show where you dated someone that you didn't see them. You just communicated.
They were
Listen,
in the room. They
right,
were in
they're
the
in the
room.
room. Well, my
In the
cousin
room.
Lauren Campbell, her and her husband, a Caucasian general, interracial couple, they were the ones that they focused on the most. But in that show, they had a gentleman that was, and I thought this was really, really good. He was bisexual, if you will. He didn't share that with the young lady. She
He
fell in
didn't.
love with him, by talking to him. Then when they met one another, and then once you meet one another, in order to meet one another, you have to propose to that person. Once you propose, then you go through a wedding, the whole 9 yards. And the only time you can get out of it is at the wedding, at the altar. You have to say, well, this is not for me. But the young man was not honest about his truth because he was afraid of what ended up happening. This young lady wasn't going to be interested in him because he was bisexual. This is really good. Now, I think that he should have shared that with her in the beginning, but he waited until he proposed to her and she was really into this guy. And then on the show, when after they did the proposal, they sent them to like a little spot where they got really acquainted with one another on the island. Then he shared his truth with her. And she immediately went into the mode like, oh my God, not you're telling me this on TV and I'm embarrassed and you're gay. But I felt that this young lady, she liked him enough. And a lot of women will accept a brother for his differences or his faults or whatever it is they would try. But he was so embarrassed and angry because she rejected him that he went off the hook or whatever, and then it went into she was like, you like DICK and so they got really offensive one towards another. But the point was is that he said that's how come he didn't want to share his truth because people would judge him for who he is, and he has a choice, but you got to be honest to be with a woman if that's what you choose to be. But brothers, I think that if you like both, and I've always said that a heart is a heart. The heart does not have a sexual orientation. You're going to break somebody's heart, and you can fall in love with someone of the same sex or the opposite sex, but I think you should be honest with them so that will give that individual a choice to select wisely if this is what they want to go into. But a lot of people aren't, and that's the reason a lot of brothers are on the down low because of society and afraid that they're going to be judged. And you have a choice, Dr. Sabrina, but people aren't going to be honest and open with you because they're going to think you're going to judge them. And there are a lot of people now, they call it fluent. They got so many different names I can't even keep up with them.
So let me ask this question, and I just want to go to uh, a story that about Andrew Gilliam, who has come out as bisexual. His public admission comes after a difficult year for Gilliam, once a rising star in the Democratic Party, who was found intoxicated in a Miami
Oh, yeah.
hotel room in March.
Mm-hmm.
Democrat who Florida governors to Republican DeSantis come out publicly as bisexual. He says, I don't identify as gay.
Gay, right.
I
I remember.
but I do identify as told on her TV show. That is something I've never shared in public before. However, his wife, because they have children, his
Right.
wife says that she did know that he was bisexual. This admission came after a difficult year. And in March, he checked into rehab to seek treatment for alcoholism and depression, because that's the other thing. A lot of times people who are struggling with how they
Their
show up in the world
sexuality,
and
right?
their sexuality and trying to appease the masses and not appeasing themselves, they
Themselves,
fall
right?
into they fall into depression. So we got a couple of comments here. They say, "Wow, I would not be interested in that lifestyle." And then that was a good show you were talking about, Rodney. But
Yes,
that
I
he was
forgot the
wrong
name of
for
it.
not
Good.
telling her up front.
Right, right. It and the thing is that everybody got upset because he didn't share, but I felt
You
why
felt
he
why he
didn't
did.
share. Exactly, because he's going to be judged. And then people say, Dr. Sabrina, people are always saying that, okay, God will deliver you, or you need to turn your life around, or whatever. But when a brother does that, then people are going to judge him if he's honest with his truth. It's like, okay, you said God said turn my life around, and here I am. I'm trying to be what not me, because I walk in my truth, but another individual. They're trying to be what they want society, what they think society think that they should be, and then you're getting judged either way. I heard somebody say in church, and this pissed me off because there's so many brothers that this has happened to in church. They tell you God says he's going to deliver you, turn your life around, get a wife. And, so this brother did it. Got a wife, got married, produced 2 kids, married, for 15, 20 years. They still talked about him, still called him gay. It's like, okay, so the brother can't win from losing. He should have just walked in his truth and been the gay man that he is, instead of trying to please or satisfy society, because they're still going to look at you as gay. Either way it goes,
So
you
they
know.
just basically said that he's a gay man that happened to get married and have children.
And that's a damn shame. That's what they say. But you told him he should,
Right.
So you
And,
can't
and
win from losing.
especially in the church. Especially in the church. They'll tell
Oh,
you, oh,
that's something.
you
But here's
gotta
a question for the church. Why
okay.
is the onus on the person that's being made to feel uncomfortable?
What was the question again? I missed it. It was
Why is the onus on the person that's being bullied? Why is the person being judged the person we assign the responsibility of
really true,
changing
right?
the culture to?
Right. If that it happens, like it's an easier target because the masses are against that person. So it's easy to jump on the bandwagon and be like, okay, you. When people fail to look at themselves, we all have something that, we go through, that we deal with, or something that society may not think is, cool, or something that we shouldn't do. So it's always easier to jump on the weaker individual, especially if they succumb to the craziness. It's like, my thing is, be who you are, walk in your truth, be honest to thyself. And a lot of people forget that in the Bible it says be true to thy own self. So it's important to be true to who you are, whatever it is.
Let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Why does the church have a difficult time with sexuality, period?
Because they say the word says that it's an abomination. That
Exactly.
men should not be lovers of
Of one
themselves.
another.
There's a scripture
And
that says
Dr. Sabrina, and I put that scripture on social media, and I forgot what scripture it was, but men,
hold on, I look
are lovers of themselves. That's not what that scripture meant.
up.
That scripture meant men should not boast within themselves or build themselves up or be greedy. And I used it, and I did a demonstration. I said that's what they meant about Donald Trump, a person like Donald Trump and his administration. They're greedy. They boast within themselves, but the church has taken that scripture and used it to put it against homosexual people. For a long time, I only thought an abomination was for men that slept with men, because that's what the church taught. But lying is an abomination.
Yes.
Who ain't lied? Who haven't lied? And I
Masturbation would be in there also.
exactly.
Well, they say
Not paying your taxes. Not
maybe
paying your taxes.
Exactly. But we were never taught that.
never taught it.
was never taught that. Every time I heard an abomination, I associated with homosexuality.
Mhm.
Always.
Okay, so
And that's what I thought.
hold on. So the scripture reads as follows: 2 Timothy 3:2.
There we go. That's it.
It says, "People will be lovers of themselves,
So,
lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, and unholy." So all of these are new, different ways of looking at it. But for the King James Version,
James, that's what I was about to say. Read the
it
King
says,
James
"For
version.
men shall be lovers of their own selves,
Right.
covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, and unthankful and unholy." So and then the other thing that they talk about is Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. Oh God. And that's not what it meant. People misinterpreted all of that. And it's ignorance, and ignorance begot ignorance. Because what you do, you're going to share it with somebody, and then they're going to pass it down when it's misinterpreted totally. And it doesn't have anything to do with homosexuality, but they use that against men and women that are same gender loving, and then that pushes them in the closet because they're teaching hate. And who wants to be different? No one wants to be different.
So
And a lot of,
let's unpack that though, because it's not just the queer community.
right. Oh
Not
yeah.
just
They use it across
sexuality,
the board.
period, is
That's
policed
true.
heavily in religious talk and not just Christianity. In 2020, I think that most folks that attend some form of worship sound like both of you. They have scriptures that they can reference for the why and the why not. They understand that there is an entire version of the Bible that was written so someone could divorce someone they did not want to be with because they were not walking in their truth. So they created a whole other Bible to live a truth that was more comfortable for them, right?
Exactly.
So I want to know why in 2020 we're still having such a difficult time with this.
Well, I think that it's a couple of reasons. One is that people navigate the world based on how they're socialized. And so if you're socialized in such a way that says this is wrong and this has been your whole existence, and that's what you embrace until you have been taught differently,
Different.
until you have been exposed to something differently, then that is when you begin to understand it. Like for me, the reason that I have the understandings that I have is because I am a researcher and a reader. And so
Right.
I read and research a lot of different things, and not just religion, but I love like um, the Asian community. When you go to the Indian community, like there, you talk about the Kama Sutra. They have temples over there that all outside the temple are sex acts carved into the temple.
All day.
Just yeah. I mean, all kind of stuff. Just
Absolutely. Right there in the art. Right there in the art, in the sculptures and the painting.
But because they are socialized differently,
Different and hadn't been
they have a
exposed to
whole
that.
different viewpoint of things. And
Exactly.
so we have to understand that our way ain't the only way.
Exactly.
And that we have to understand that it's a whole big old world out here, and you have to understand and open yourself up to learning differences. Because one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that in churches, we beat up on folk, but we're
Yes.
supposed to be loving folk.
Exactly.
So that's amazing to me that people do that. And my example is that I had a girlfriend, she's deceased now, but she was born a hermaphrodite.
Mm.
And at that time, when she was born hermaphrodite in the 40s, they at birth made the decision to make her a boy or a girl at birth. They don't do that any longer, but they did it then. So the family decided to make her a boy. So she was a boy, navigating life as a boy. But when she hit puberty, she developed breasts naturally. She had many more female qualities than she had male.
Yeah. Wow.
She was 19. They gave her sexual corrective surgery.
Oh wow.
That's what the surgery paper says. But no one knew that because all the people who went to school with her, grew up with her, went to church with her, always said that she had a sex change. And I remember when me and her became friends, that I had people in the church saying, "Don't be around her because you know she had a sex change."
Wow.
And if she did, what that got to do with me?
Exactly.
Is it gonna rub off?
And her as being a person, that's just a small part. Sexuality is a small part of who we are as
Yes.
individuals. When
Yes.
I met you, Dr. Sabrina, I didn't say, "Oh, I wonder who she had sex with or what is she doing." I saw your physical being first, and then I saw your spirit. I saw that you were a wonderful person. Who you slept with and whatever else that you did, that was not my business. As long as we respected one another and we got along with one another, that's all that matters. It's like when we came to, if I was sexually attracted to you, then that's when we should open up a line of communication and find out what it is that you like. And because you like greens and I like spinach, doesn't mean that we're not going to be friends. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, come on. And it really boils down just to that. It's like, we can still be cool, but I just don't eat spinach. So don't offer me spinach. You eat greens and I'm not, eating greens. So let's just respect one another, but we can be friends.
So how do we create an environment where all folks can tell that truth up front? Because this sounds very self-inflicted to me. If we make it okay to tell people who we are, then we don't have to worry about finding out who you are on the back end.
Okay, but this is the thing. Would the person, I have this question. So, would the person who asked me if I would date a bisexual man, and if I say no, does that mean that now he feels bad? Does he feel that I'm being judging because that's my truth?
Right. And Dr.
Because,
Sabrina, to add on that, for one, you probably have dated a bisexual man. You
oh, I
just
know I
didn't
have.
know it.
Oh, I know I have. I know I have because I found out. And when I found out, I was out. But I'm just
Right. Because brothers ain't going to tell you no crap like that at all. But it's because of society that has forced a lot of people into the closet, or forced a lot of people to not be honest with who they really are as an individual. But it all depends on the individual, because one shouldn't feel bad if someone doesn't. You're just not attracted to that. That's your choice. And I think that everybody should have that choice. That's why I think that in a relationship, and especially if you decide to get married, that's something that you need to discuss with your partner, because that's going to be something that's going to be lacking in the relationship.
Mhm.
And then you're going to eventually end up going outside of the relationship to get the satisfaction that you're looking for. But we're all grown.
making it face.
Yeah, it's like we're all grown.
Or what about the part about you married someone that you never got to fully appreciate because they didn't let you get to know them?
Yes,
That's happened a lot.
that happens a lot, and it happens a lot in the church.
Oh yeah.
It happens a lot in the church because people are walking in these roles that other people have created for them.
For them. That's right, Dr.
And they say that this is how I have to navigate my life because
Right.
this, and it's really not their truth. And so then they get. I've worked with clients who have gotten married, that never really explored their body, knew anything about their body because they thought it was a sin, and so now they're married and they don't know what they're doing, and
and they're
not
not satisfied.
they're not satisfied.
They're not. And then they'll sit there and tell you that God sent me this individual. If God sent you somebody, then it should be working out for you. If God sent it to
It
you.
should
But
be.
I think there's a bit of accountability necessary in all of this. I think there is. God does a lot, and Satan does a lot, but I think we, the people, do a lot of self-inflicted. We're doing a whole lot. And I think we need to own some of that.
Do a lot. The church has been, and they have not been held accountable for a lot of the things that they have done to people. Just like I said back in the day, Dr. Sabrina, you'll be able to relate to this. In the church, they say, "Oh, you can't wear pants, and women shouldn't wear red lipstick, or you shouldn't do." Where is that? What does that have to do with loving people or being a Christian or salvation because of these things? So, and you couldn't dance, you couldn't go to prom. So many people were deprived of so many things in their lives because of the church and because of what their pastor understood the Bible to be. That's how come it says show yourself by studying the Bible. Exactly. You have to study it for yourself. So you show yourself approved, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to be held accountable for what you did and what you understood. But it's so many people that have gone on, that have passed, that never got the opportunity to really explore themselves and who they were, because they were living their lives for the church, not for Christ, but for the rules of the church. And the church, I'm sorry, is going to be held accountable for that, because it's not right. That's how come you have to have a mind of your own. You have to study the word for yourself. You can't look Jim Jones. That's how come he was so successful. And Donald Trump.
But what if we get braver? What if we get braver? Because I think we let ourselves off the hook a bit. If we just look at it, I think we let ourselves off the hook a bit. The church is people.
I do agree that church is people, but the church is people that's using a set of rules.
Yes.
And they are, and the Bible and that set of rules is what they are. They Bible thumping.
Living by, exactly.
That's how I make every decision based on what the word, all that. But someone just said, it's just like marrying outside of your race. I heard someone say, at least you're not going to hell for who you married. I just said, so you know who's going to hell?
Exactly.
And so often we have so many hang-ups. So I think that one of the things that I appreciate about both of you is that you're open to the conversation. You're open to speaking your truth. Because Roddy just said, I ain't trying to be what somebody else want me to be.
I can't. I'm just trying to be me, because everybody else is taken. So I can't be me. And look, and I'm okay if you're uncomfortable with who I am as a person. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That's on you. I happen to like myself, and I think I'm a pretty nice person. I treat people the way I want to be treated. But if you're uncomfortable with me, hey, I'm fine with that.
And so, Kyra,
yes,
what do you feel that people, especially people that's listening to this, because people are going to be listening later, what do you feel that they really need to know about supporting the LGBTQ community? Because this is the thing, I don't have to be that to be accepting and loving again. Because I know people who are I have a niece. She's getting married to a woman, and her family is almost about to stab them. I mean, they so mad. They so evil and mean.
That's terrible.
It's just so bad. And so I've been trying to kind of talk to them, massage it, and I was like, then you're gonna be lonely by yourself, because this girl is for real gonna marry this woman, and that's who she loves, and more power to them.
Right. And Dr. Sabrina, if I can piggyback on that, how many times have we, and I'm saying that to say that we should support individuals on who they love, but how many times have we went to Felicia's wedding and we knew that Pookie was not the guy? Pookie been kicking her behind. He been doing all that. But we went to Felicia's wedding and supported Felicia because that's who she loved. It's like, are you kidding me? So if you have a child, and it's really not, and it's not your life. It's not your life. And I think all parents and families should want their relatives or their children to be happy at the end of the day. That may not be my choice for you, but I'm going to support you because I love you. And if God's going to turn it around, whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen. But people, you have to allow them to be who they are and to make the mistakes, if it is a mistake that they're going to make, but you have to support them. I would never not support my child. I would talk to them.
Let me ask Kyra this, because Kyra has been married before to a man. When you were married to a man, did you get a whole bunch of support, Kyra?
That's an interesting conversation. So in that particular marriage, no, because of who he was and
Okay.
because of who I am.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And so now that you identify as gay, do you have family members that are supportive?
I do. I do.
Good, 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 good,
And
good, good.
that's so wonderful. And not to be judgmental or anything, Kyra, I didn't know that you were gay. But I mean, you're beautiful, and I hope a lot of people are watching this because they have a preconception that if you're a gay woman, that you got to be, if you will excuse me, a bulldogger or look like a man or want to be a man, and then they think all gay guys are feminine and want to be a woman. No, you guys, it's a variety, just like it is heterosexual people. It's a variety of same gender loving people. There's a lot of them that are masculine, a lot of them that are feminine, just like straight people. There's some men that are soft, there's some guys that are like extremely masculine. It's a variety. So don't put us in
I'm
this
gonna take it a step
particular box.
farther, Rodney, just so we
Uh-huh.
can clarify for our listeners, because I love where
Please.
you're going, and I want to meet you there.
Okay.
There's no two types of human beings. Like you get born and then you get to the rest.
Right.
So there's no such thing as a straight or gay 2-year-old
Right.
because children are not sexual at all.
Exactly. They're not
Right?
sexual.
So we're not confused when we're 2, and we're not confused when we're 5, and we're not confused when we're 9
At all.
about what a person needs.
Exactly.
Stay clear as they grow older.
Exactly.
Right? We don't have to complicate this because straight kids and gay kids come from the same parents.
Exactly.
And that parent wasn't confused when they were 2.
When they had
And the aunt wasn't confused when they were 5. And big brother wasn't confused when they were 9.
Right.
You loved your sibling, you loved your family member. That didn't stop because they started sleeping with people.
Right. Exactly. There you go. That's a good one.
Right. We got to keep things real simple for our people. We get
Exactly.
distracted.
And they don't understand. And you know what? The answer that I always get when they say, "Oh, I never thought of it like that."
Mhm.
They never do. They look at us like
I think we give ourselves too much credit. I think we overcomplicate things sometimes.
We do.
But to your question,
We do.
Dr. Jackson, because I do want to answer that. I think one thing that's very, very important is to stop presuming answers.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not living in a lifestyle, you would know anything about it to be able to know how it feels in the first place. If you're not sleeping with a woman as a woman, you wouldn't know anything about it anyway.
Exactly.
Right? But if you want to be supportive, I think the first thing is admitting that we don't know and it doesn't affect us.
Exactly.
Right? I think we have to be
yourself. Talk to someone that is of same gender loving. Educate yourself. Learn.
Or don't, because I'll be honest, you don't have to come over here and ask me questions if you're not interested in my answers. That's a thing too.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
It's like the other folks coming over to you at work asking how it feels to be Black right now. I don't owe you that.
Exactly.
I don't owe you that. So it's a case by case.
But sometimes we have to take advantage of that opportunity to educate so that they won't be ignorant, so that they will know when they go forth that,
but
that's not what I
there's
thought
a
it was.
responsibility to educate yourself also. Just like I don't owe the white person at work what it feels like to be Black. Right. A straight person doesn't owe me an explanation on what it feels like to be straight, and vice versa.
Exactly.
Because the funny thing about this conversation that I need all folks that are not LGBT to keep in mind, you don't come out straight ever. There's no announcement, and then there's no explanation behind that.
Exactly, but we have to.
I'll say this, because one of the things is I'm so glad we've had this time together because it's the end of the show. But one of the things that I say all the time is that we always have opportunities to teach. Mm-hmm. It's about how we, when it comes at us, what we do with it. Mm-hmm. So I talk about how I've had people ask me, could they touch my skin because they haven't seen anybody as dark as me in person before. That's a teachable moment. And a lot of times people don't know, and so they ask, and they may ask
when you don't know.
But if you don't know, you don't know. And so I'm going to continue to every single Wednesday bring you some topics that you may not know, but you get an opportunity to hear it from the people who do know. So I want to thank my guest, Miss Kyra Lee. Kyra, how can people find you if they're looking for you in Black women worldwide?
We are located on IG, Black spelled with a V, women spelled with an X worldwide. Also our website, www.blvckwomxn worldwide.org. And thank you so much for having me, Dr. Jackson. This has been amazing.
I love you. And to the socialite. You know, I like calling
Hello.
I love calling you a socialite. I'm
And
the
look,
special that I
I
know a
love being
socialite.
one. I can't wait until this pandemic is over. It has put a damper on my social life.
Absolutely.
I can't do no. I can't get dressed up and go nowhere. We're limited.
You gotta do some more of those little videos when you going in your clothes and your clothes was too
The
tight. That was
TikTok, I
hilarious.
love TikTok, Dr. Sabrina. That's what sustained me through this pandemic.
So where can people find you, Rodney?
Oh, you guys, I'm Rodney Howell, and you can find me just with my name, Rodney Howell, Howell, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. Just key in Rodney Howell, and there I am, smiling and waving.
And how's your clothing line going?
Dr. Sabrina, it's going pretty well. I kind of partnered up with Joy Sheffield with On and Off the Runway. And as you
Oh,
see
with
on social
Lexi.
media, yeah, we've done some pictures, and Joyce is doing phenomenal with her clothing line. So she's getting some of her people over, and women shop for their men. So she's getting some of her people over onto my page. But with the pandemic, it's been kind of hard to find, pieces. A lot of my things were coming from China and from abroad. So it's kind of hard to find the things for men. And then now I can't travel to California or New York like I normally would to create relationships with suppliers. So, but it's coming. I love fashion, so I'm not giving up.
Oh no, you can't do it. Well, I want to thank the both of you. I love you, love you, love you, love you. This has been an interesting topic, and I've learned some
Awesome.
things. And you all tune in next week. Oh yes, we're going to be talking about religion and politics, and should religious people be in politics, or I don't know. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to have some amazing guests next week. Have a great week. I love you. Take care.
We love you too. And Kyra, is my pleasure, Kyra.
My pleasure,
Beautiful,
Rodney.
beautiful.
Take
Dr.
care.
Sabrina, I love you as always. Thank you so much for thinking about me. And I apologize about the tardiness. I was trying to get this social thing going. I'm like, come
We old.
on.
Look, we old. That's
I
all.
know.
We just old.
Where are we all? Thank you,
Exactly.
Dr. Jackson.
I love you guys. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. It's truly my pleasure.
Take care.